Okay, Peter, we're here at the Conscious Living Expo, and it's the end of the weekend. What did you come here basically to talk about?
Well, look, I came here with two missions. The first was really to talk about cholesterol and to tell people there's no such thing as bad cholesterol, okay? And introduce people to the whole idea of these medical myths and lies that are perpetuated to sell a drug. And the other side is really about teaching people that you can look after your own health. Health comes from you, not from a doctor. We've got great doctors for burns, breaks and bacteria, but when it comes to long-term health and well-being, they've got no idea. They're sicker than the rest of us. And so my message is, look, we can look after ourselves through the right attitude, the right environment, the right lifestyle and the right diet. And then you don't have to worry about anything like cholesterol, because guess what? It all works in your body's favour.
So you're about empowering people to take control of their own health.
Oh, look, absolutely. Empowering. I mean, the first thing I normally start with, in every talk I do, and I do hundreds, it's really about understand that you are in control. Attitude is the single most important factor for living longer, being smarter, enjoying life, staying well, careers, you name it. So if you can impart a little bit of positiveness on people and show that there are some steps that you can take, and then they realise that, hold on, I don't need to take those drugs, because my body knows best, or I don't need to do that because all I need to do is exercise. But first, you've often got to convince people that, get that positive attitude, the can-do, look after yourself. You're the one in charge.
So taking responsibility is a big thing.
Look, taking responsibility for your health is an absolute. And I suppose what's happened over the last 50 years in particular, we've given more and more away. Even when it comes down to eating, we rely on the officials to sell us junk foods, to tell us that it's okay, and we get sick, and then everyone gives us drugs to deal with the issues, and we get caught up in this miasma of absolute lies and deception. Whenever I speak to people, then I say, look, what do you think is real good food? What is the best food? And they tell me, they know. But they say, but what about the food pyramid? And I say, yeah, that's a lie, isn't it? And then they say, but what about the Heart Foundation? I say, yeah, come on. They're sponsored by McDonald's, the breakfast food companies, and they receive $250,000 a year from drug companies every year. Yeah, how reliable is that? So, we have to go back and trust the people. Trust ourselves first, and then trust the people who are doing these things. I do 100 public talks a year for free. And if people who come to them walk out and go, yeah, that's true. Because I don't have a vested interest. I don't make money from selling poisons to people.
So we have to look at not only where the information is coming from, but who's funding it and who has something to gain from it.
Look, that whole idea of vested interest, there is so much. In fact, I wrote my little book, The Great Cholesterol Deception, and half is about cholesterol and the lies, and the fact that the drugs do not help a single person but cause a lot of pain. And there's 500 references to prove it. 500 references. Try to beat that when the drug companies. But it's really about, the first part is about cholesterol. The second part is really about the deception and the lies, and the fact that it starts with the research. And a classic example is, as I gave in my talk today, when they talk about cholesterol, how successful they are, they use what's called relative statistics. So 1% becomes 50%. But when they talk about the side effects, they use absolute statistics, so 50% becomes 1%. And in the same paper, they will twist the statistics around, and the researchers, look, I've been a researcher for 25 years at university, and research is corrupt. Who's got the money pays the researchers to think and do. However, when there's independent research, what's really interesting, not only does it show that stuff that you read in the medical journals that are paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, but you also find that those people are shut down quickly too.
Because independent research doesn't get published, does
it? Absolutely. There are great researchers. On this topic, okay, on cholesterol, there are 100 websites, of which 100 of those people are professors, associate professors, PhDs, masters, doctors, GPs, surgeons, cardiologists, endocrinologists, all of those people on the website, on their own back, saying this is a lie. This is an absolute lie, the stuff about cholesterol, and yet in Australia we spend $6 billion a year, and the government The government subsidises it $1 billion a year with my taxpayers' money. And, hold on, so there are these perpetuating lies. And then the media, as soon as I published, it was really interesting, as soon as I published my essays on cholesterol, in the West Australian over here, the media stopped. I was doing 2 interviews a week, okay? 2 interviews a week. And I was writing for the local paper here, and it stopped within 3 weeks. All of a sudden, someone from the medicine industry said, this guy is causing too many hassles. And look, I'm happy. I don't mind that, because there are other ways now to get the message out to people, but the real message is just truth and honesty, and people know that these drugs hurt. You know, in one study alone, 65% of the population dropped out of the study because of the side effects.
And they still release the drug.
And they still release the drug.
That's right.
And everyone just seems to ignore it, and yet I get a letter a day saying, I've got these side effects, are they related? And then one of them said, but my doctor's trying to put me on, and I said, your doctor is a fool. I'm sorry. Any doctor who is prescribing drugs to lower cholesterol is either arrogant, ignorant, or has vested interests, or all 3 together.
Well, how else can people lower their cholesterol if they don't take the drugs?
Look, the point is you don't need it. Cholesterol is a Band-Aid. If you've got high cholesterol, look, 50% of people who have a heart attack have high cholesterol. 50% who have a heart attack have low cholesterol. Come on. What it's telling you is your liver is under stress, your body is under stress. So if you want to lower your cholesterol, stop stressing. Don't go to your doctors because they tell you fear things that it's going to kill you if you don't take them. Water. Lots more water. Get off all the carbohydrates. We are not grain eaters. Get away from the breads, the pastas, the rice and all that. It's really simple. By the way, that'll also reverse your diabetes and help you lose weight and so many other benefits out there. And lots of water, lots of nutrients. Australians are deficient in just about every nutrient. The crappy foods they eat, the crappy soils that foods are grown in, there's just nothing available. So, you know, the message really should be, take control of your health. You don't need drugs. There is nobody in this country who is deficient in medication. Nobody. But everybody, except me, is deficient in nutrients. Everybody. And I see that every day. People come up to me every day and you just look at them and you know they're sick. Cholesterol is a sign that something is wrong with your life and your nutrition.
What do you think about the people who say that you should eat margarine instead of butter to lower your cholesterol? The
people who say they should, you should eat margarine instead of butter, first of all, don't know the science, okay? First of all, cholesterol isn't the problem. It's a Band-Aid, okay? Now, margarine is about the worst food you could eat. I would not recommend it to any animal. In fact, I put it in my garage and it stayed there for 2 months and nothing ate it. It's not our food. Now, it may lower cholesterol, but cholesterol is a Band-Aid in the body. Cholesterol is just a Band-Aid telling you something's wrong. It's going to where the damage is being done. Why do you want to get rid of the Band-Aids? What you need to do is get rid of the cause of the elevated cholesterol. There is no research in the world that shows that margarine benefits health. It lowers cholesterol, but remember, cholesterol is not the problem. Cholesterol is the problem that the medical people have made to make $6 billion profit in Australia. It's not a problem.
I'm not sure if you heard, but there was a recommendation that came out about a month ago that fast food restaurants like McDonald's or Hungry Jack's should be giving statin medications along with the meals when people buy them, because they felt that we knew that those meals increased the bad cholesterol, and giving statin medications at the same time would ameliorate that problem.
Look, we have heard, there are so many attempts to get statins everywhere, okay, and unfortunately we're following the American model. And now, the Americans are the sickest population in the world. Sickest population in the world. They spend more money on medications than anywhere else in the world, and they are the sickest. They rate something like 32 in the world scaling, and the countries that spend the least, places like Okinawa, places like Cuba, places like that have no pharmaceuticals, are where the populations actually live to 80 healthily and no medication. And I've done a lot of work with seniors, and the seniors who are healthy and walking around, 85, 90, have never taken medication. And the ones who are taking the medication at 50 and 60 are sick. They don't take it because the medication makes them sick.
Right.
And so we really, really need to think it. Now, of course, another great way to sell something is to say, well, when you have McDonald's, you know, take some medication. But better off, stop eating the junk foods. You know, and the real junk foods in Australia, look, McDonald's isn't the worst. I would rather people have McDonald's for breakfast than cornflakes.
Right.
Cornflakes, breakfast foods, all of those breakfast foods are over-processed grains with high sugar and absolutely no nutritional value. None whatsoever. I know they claim they've got high iron. You can't digest the iron. They've got vitamin B1, B2, B3, B4, folate and iron, but they've got no vegetables in them. They've got no fruit, real fruit, not dry fruit, real fruit. And if they don't have that, then they're not nutritious, and they're a waste of time. The sickest populations in the world have cereal for breakfast.
So what do you recommend? Where do people go to get information on what they should be eating?
Oh, look, the website is awry with information, but there's some really good ones. You know, mine obviously, it's drdingle.com. There are a lot of information up there about healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, the things you need to do, and it's all free. There's more than 80 blogs, you know, talking about all of this type of stuff, even reversing illnesses like psoriasis and diabetes. And then there are other ones like Macola. There's Dr. John Briffa in the UK, and there are at least 100 GPs with their own websites around the world telling you, look after your own health, and this other stuff is absolutely rubbish. You don't need to be on medication. And these are doctors, they're saying it. Or you go to a nutritional GP and they will tell you, you know, 10% of Australian doctors actually don't recommend cholesterol-lowering drugs.
So they know.
They know.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's it. So the information is out there. Take responsibility for your health.
Yep.
Become informed. And the name of your book again?
The Great Cholesterol Deception.
Okay, a fantastic book to read about this very important issue. Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate it.
That's a pleasure, Meryl. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.